Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by people, but still feel completely alone? Have you spent hours scrolling through social media feeds, watching everyone seem happy, while a strange sensation grew in your chest? That feeling has a name: loneliness. And it doesn't choose age, social class, or life situation. It can hit both the college student and the successful executive, both those who live alone and those who live in a house full of people. What's most frightening is that loneliness has become a silent epidemic. Millions of people suffer from it every day, but almost no one talks about it openly. Why? Because our society has taught us that admitting loneliness is a sign of weakness. We're living through a unique time in human history. We've never had so many ways to connect, but paradoxically, we've never felt so disconnected. Loneliness has become one of today's biggest problems, competing directly with issues like depression and anxiety. Recent studies show that chronic loneliness affects the immune system similarly to smoking and can reduce life expectancy by up to 15 years. What's most striking is how people desperately try not to feel alone. They try everything. They join WhatsApp groups with dozens of people they barely know, download dating apps and spend hours swiping through profiles, sign up for expensive courses just to have someone to talk to, go to crowded gyms even though they hate exercising, go to bars even though they don't like drinking, attend social events that spark no real interest. The result? Even after all that social rushing around, they often return home with that empty feeling in their chest even more intense. It's like they spent the whole day eating emotional fast food. It fills the stomach momentarily, but doesn't truly nourish. Worse yet, it leaves a feeling of existential nausea. There's a cruel difference between being accompanied and feeling connected. You can be at a party with 100 people, laughing, talking, posting photos in your stories, and still go home feeling profoundly alone. On the other hand, you can have a 5-minute conversation with a stranger on the bus and feel truly seen and understood. Why does this happen? The answer isn't simple, but one thing becomes clear. Our society places all the responsibility for solving loneliness on the individual themselves. It's as if they're saying, if you're alone, it's because you're not trying hard enough to make friends. This mentality is not only cruel, but also completely misguided. Think about other life problems. When you have a headache, you can take medicine by yourself. When you want to learn a new language, you can use apps and study alone. When you need to improve your physical fitness, you can work out alone at home. When you have financial problems, you can create a budget and cut expenses by yourself. But loneliness is fundamentally different. It's the only human problem that, by its very definition, cannot be solved alone. You need the presence, attention, and genuine care of another person. There's no self-healing for loneliness. There's no self-help technique that can substitute for real human connection. It's like trying to tickle yourself. Physically impossible. And that's exactly where the great problem of our era lies. Our culture has created an impossible paradox. It demands that people solve alone a problem that can only be solved together. Our society has changed drastically in recent decades, and not always for the better when it comes to human connection. Today, more than ever, we're bombarded with messages about the importance of independence. Independence has become almost a modern religion, preached everywhere. Self-help books, motivational speeches, LinkedIn posts, family conversations. From childhood, we absorb these ideas. Don't depend on anyone. You are complete by yourself. You don't need anyone to be happy. Learn to be comfortable in your own company. These phrases sound empowering in theory, but in practice they can be extremely isolating. Of course, independence has its merits. It's important to know how to manage, have financial autonomy, not become a burden to others. But we've taken this philosophy to dangerous extremes. We've transformed healthy interdependence into something shameful. This movement has gained even more strength recently. We see the growth of the so-called anti-work movement, where people increasingly seek autonomy to not depend on bosses or colleagues. The pandemic accelerated this. Remote work, app deliveries, online shopping, streaming, virtual games, digital relationships. Technology has facilitated a completely isolated lifestyle. Today, it's possible to spend weeks without significant physical contact with another human being. You can work from home, without in-person meetings. You can order all meals through apps, without talking to waiters. You can do all shopping online, without talking to salespeople. You can entertain yourself with Netflix and YouTube, without sharing moments with anyone. Many people do exactly this and initially feel liberated. Finally, I don't have to put up with annoying people, they think. I can do everything at my own pace, without depending on anyone. The initial feeling is one of relief and control. But after a few weeks or months, something strange starts to happen. A diffuse feeling of emptiness, an inexplicable lack of energy, constant irritation, growing difficulty concentrating, depression symptoms that seem to come out of nowhere. What's happening? Social atrophy. It's like a muscle we don't use, it weakens. The more we live isolated, the harder it becomes to genuinely connect with other people. We develop social anxiety, lose patience for dealing with differences, become intolerant of natural relationship conflicts. We also lose the ability to read subtle social cues. Facial expressions, tones of voice, body language, pauses in conversations. These skills only develop with constant practice. People who stay isolated for too long literally unlearn how to interact socially in a natural way. Even worse, we develop unrealistic expectations about relationships. When you spend too much time alone, especially consuming digital content, you can start expecting real relationships to work like virtual relationships. Without conflicts, without misunderstandings, without the need for compromise or patience. Parallel to this social shift toward isolation, the world has become an objectively more stressful place. It's not just an impression. Scientific data proves we're living in the most anxious era in human history. Studies show that mental illnesses now surpass cancer and heart disease as the main causes of suffering and disability. Why is this happening? The reasons are multiple and complex. First, modern life bombards us with constant stimuli. Phone notifications, urgent emails, alarming news, social media comparisons. Our brain, which evolved to deal with occasional threats in the savannah, now receives hundreds of danger alerts per day. Second, economic pressures have increased exponentially. The cost of living rises faster than wages. Competition in the job market is fierce. Financial insecurity is a reality for most people, even those with apparently stable jobs. Third, social expectations have become impossible to meet. We're bombarded with images of apparently perfect people, with apparently wonderful lives, achieving apparently easy successes. The pressure to optimize all aspects of life is suffocating. Faced with so much chronic stress, our natural reaction is to seek refuge in safe spaces. We want places where we feel protected, where we don't have to face criticism or conflicts, where we can let our guard down without fear of judgment. It's a completely understandable and even healthy response in moderate doses. The problem is where we find these safe spaces in the digital age. The answer is mainly on the internet. And here, serious problems begin. The internet, especially social media, is not designed to be true safe spaces. They're designed to generate engagement, which is how companies profit. And algorithms have discovered something disturbing. Nothing generates more engagement than intense negative emotions. Anger, indignation, fear, envy, sadness, revolt. These emotions make people comment, share, discuss, stay online longer. Platforms literally profit by keeping you emotionally agitated. A calm and balanced user is a less profitable user. That's why your feed is constantly filled with content that gets you worked up. Alarming news, heated debates, public cancellations, comparisons that generate envy, controversies that generate indignation. Even when you look for innocent entertainment, algorithms gradually direct you toward more extreme content, because extremes generate more clicks. Within this toxic environment, people naturally form digital bubbles, also called echo chambers. These are groups where we only hear opinions we already agree with, where we only see content that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. It's psychologically comfortable, but extremely dangerous for our ability to coexist with differences. Imagine you believe in a specific idea about politics, religion, relationships, health, any subject. In digital environments, you quickly find thousands of people who think exactly like you. Posts, videos, comments, all confirming that you're right, all criticizing those who think differently, all reinforcing your beliefs. After months or years in this environment, your mind becomes completely conditioned. You start to believe that your opinion is not only correct, but obvious. That people who disagree are stupid, ill-intentioned, or manipulated. That there's no legitimate space for debate, because the truth is crystal clear. These digital bubbles generate an extremely concerning phenomenon: total intolerance of difference. When we spend too much time in environments where everyone thinks alike, we completely lose the ability to deal with opposing opinions. Any disagreement, however minor, becomes grounds for conflict, aggression, or breaking off relationships. There's even a technical term for this: online drift. It works like artificial selection. When someone expresses a slightly different opinion in an online community, instead of healthy debate, an immune reaction happens. The person is attacked, ridiculed, banned, or canceled. Over time, these spaces become increasingly homogeneous and extreme, because only people who agree 100% with each other remain. Any dissenting voice is eliminated. The result is communities living in parallel realities, increasingly distant from each other. Most frightening is how this contaminates offline relationships. People who spend too much time in digital bubbles start applying the same intolerance in personal relationships. A friend who votes differently becomes an enemy. A family member with different religious opinions becomes toxic. A colleague who disagrees on social issues becomes problematic. The result is a completely fragmented society, where people live in isolated ideological tribes, attacking those who think differently and moving increasingly away from any possibility of genuine dialogue. The irony is cruel. Trying to escape loneliness through digital communities, people create even more separation in the real world. They cut family ties over political differences. They end old friendships over disagreements about social themes. They avoid co-workers who have different values. We've reached the core of the problem, and it's paradoxical. Loneliness is, by nature, a collective responsibility that can only be resolved when one person genuinely connects with another. But our hyper-individualistic society transfers all responsibility to each person individually. It's like saying, you need another person to solve your problem, but it's your responsibility to find that person and convince them to help you. It's a Kafka-esque situation, absurd, impossible to solve within this logic. Our culture intensely values self-sufficiency in all areas of life. From childhood, we absorb these messages. Learn on your own. Solve your problems alone. Don't bother others with your dramas. Be independent. And really, this works for many areas of life. Want to improve your health? There's an infinity of information available. You can research nutrition, create a diet, make an exercise plan, improve sleep quality, take supplements. All on your own, at your pace, without depending on anyone. Want to learn a new skill? There are thousands of online courses, YouTube tutorials, books, podcasts, apps. You can learn languages, programming, cooking, music, art, business. Again, all alone, when you want, how you want. Want to be more productive? There are proven scientific methods you can apply. Pomodoro technique, Eisenhower matrix, GTD method, time blocking. You can organize your schedule, eliminate distractions, optimize processes, increase your focus. Want to improve financially? You can study financial education, create a budget, invest in fixed income, learn about stocks, create passive income sources. Everything available for free on the internet, without needing expensive consultants or courses. For almost all challenges of modern life, the logic of self-sufficiency really works. That's why it became so popular and widely accepted. People see real results when they apply this mentality, but when the subject is loneliness, all this logic completely crumbles. There's no online course that cures loneliness. There's no productivity technique that substitutes human connection. There's no app that eliminates the need for genuine relationships. You can read all the relationship books in the world, but that won't create a friendship. You can watch all the videos about social skills, but that won't generate a real conversation with someone. You can perfectly understand the psychology of human connection, but still feel isolated. Loneliness is the great exception to the rule of self-sufficiency. It can only be resolved with the presence, attention, and genuine care of another person. There's no way to outsource this to technology, automation, or self-help. And here arises the most important and disturbing question of our era. If each person is only responsible for themselves, if everyone should solve their own problems alone, who will be responsible for taking care of others' loneliness? Logically, no one. If my only obligation is to myself, why should I worry about strangers' loneliness? If everyone should figure it out alone, why would I waste time helping others feel less isolated? The answer should be obvious. Because we live in an interdependent society where each person's well-being affects everyone's well-being. A truly healthy society is one where people genuinely care for one another. But this mentality is being rapidly lost in the name of absolute independence. The result is a society of islands, millions of isolated people, each trying to solve alone a problem that can only be solved collectively. It's like having an epidemic where each sick person needs to produce their own vaccine. So, what can we do as a society to reverse this destructive trend? First, and perhaps most important, we need to develop greater tolerance for different points of view. This doesn't mean agreeing with everything or relativizing important values. It means recognizing that intelligent, well-intentioned people can reach different conclusions about complex topics. Instead of immediately canceling, attacking, or cutting off relationships with those who think differently, we can try to understand their reasons. Where does this opinion come from? What life experiences led this person to think this way? What values or concerns are behind this perspective? Opinion conflicts are not only normal, but fundamental for a healthy society. It's through respectful debate that we refine our ideas, identify blind spots, find creative solutions to complex problems. A society where everyone thinks alike is a stagnant and fragile society. This doesn't mean we should accept any opinion as valid. Racism, misogyny, homophobia, incitement to violence obviously don't deserve tolerance. But most disagreements don't involve these extreme issues. They involve legitimate differences in values, priorities, strategies, interpretations. For example, two people can agree that poverty is a serious problem, but disagree about the best ways to fight it. One might advocate for more government social programs, another might prefer private initiatives and social entrepreneurship. Both positions have merits and limitations. The debate between them can generate more effective hybrid solutions. Second, we need to collectively recognize a fundamental truth. No one can solve their own loneliness alone. This isn't a personal failing, a character weakness, or a deficit in social skill. It's an inherent characteristic of the human condition. We are literally social beings by nature. Our brain evolved over millions of years to function in cooperative groups. Prolonged isolation isn't just psychologically painful, it's physically harmful. Studies show that chronic loneliness affects the immune system, increases inflammation, raises blood pressure, impairs sleep, accelerates aging. When someone admits they're feeling lonely, our reaction should be understanding and offering help, not judgment or advice about learning to be alone. It's like if someone said they had pneumonia and we responded, "You should learn to breathe better on your own." Third, we need to cultivate a mentality more focused on compassion and less on individual rights or personal interests. When we see someone clearly alone, isolated, without meaningful social connections, our first reaction should be, "How can I help?" And not, "It's not my problem." This doesn't mean becoming responsible for others' happiness or sacrificing ourselves for others. It means recognizing that our individual well-being is intimately connected to collective well-being. A community where many people are alone is a less healthy, less productive, less resilient community for everyone. Excessive independence, ironically, generates a perverse form of dependence. Everyone depends on themselves for everything, which is an impossible burden to carry. No human being was designed to be completely self-sufficient in all areas of life. When each person only thinks about themselves, when each family only cares for their own family, when each group only protects their own group, the inevitable result is social fragmentation. Everyone ends up alone, each on their particular island of worries and suffering. On the other hand, communities where genuine mutual care exists are more resilient, happier, more prosperous for all members. It's not sentimental altruism, it's intelligent pragmatism. Fortunately, there's a practical and powerful way to start changing this reality, and it's within reach of any person. While you can't solve your own loneliness alone, you can definitely help solve another person's loneliness. And this is one of the most transformative discoveries about the topic. 3 simple attitudes can make an extraordinary difference in the lives of people around you and, consequently, in your own life. First, develop greater tolerance and patience with people who think, act, or live differently from you. Instead of cutting off relationships at the first disagreement, try to keep channels of dialogue open. This doesn't mean accepting abusive behavior or submitting to toxic relationships. It means distinguishing between legitimate differences of opinion and genuinely harmful behaviors. Most interpersonal conflicts arise from misunderstandings, different forms of communication, or distinct priorities, not from malice or fundamental incompatibility. Second, recognize and accept that solving loneliness requires collective effort, not individual effort. When someone close shows signs of social isolation, instead of giving advice about learning to be alone or working on self-esteem, offer genuine presence. Invite them to activities, start conversations, show real interest in the person. Third, and perhaps most counterintuitive, if you're feeling lonely, try focusing on helping someone instead of just seeking help for yourself. This shift in perspective is revolutionary for the reasons I'll explain. This last attitude might seem strange or even counterproductive. How am I going to help others if I'm feeling bad myself? Shouldn't I first solve my own problems? Isn't this running away from my reality? These are legitimate questions, but based on an incomplete understanding of how the psychology of connection works. To understand why focusing on others is paradoxically the best way to help yourself, we need to analyze in detail the cruel cycle of anxiety and loneliness that keeps millions of people trapped. Most people who suffer from chronic loneliness live a constant and exhausting internal war. When the feeling of isolation becomes unbearable, they make a heroic effort to connect with others. They call friends they haven't seen in months, schedule social meetings, sign up for group activities, go to parties even without wanting to. But then, something cruel and frustrating happens. The more desperate they are for connection, the more they need the interaction to work out, the greater their social anxiety becomes. They start getting nervous before meetings, anxious during conversations, worried about every word they speak. Am I being interesting? Am I talking too much? Are they liking me? Will I be able to maintain a conversation? What if there's an awkward silence? What if they realize I'm desperate for friendship? This anxiety makes them behave artificially, forced, exaggerated. They try to be funnier than natural, agree with everything to avoid conflict, ask too many questions to keep the conversation going, laugh at jokes they didn't find funny. The result is an interaction that seems fake both to them and to others. Even worse, the high expectation about the social encounter makes any imperfection seem like a disaster. If the conversation doesn't flow perfectly, if there's no immediate magical connection, if they don't leave with new best friends, they interpret this as personal failure. I really am boring, they think. I don't have a knack for relationships. People don't like me. I'm not cut out for this. Their self-esteem, already weakened by loneliness, gets even worse. Result? They withdraw again, isolate themselves for weeks or months, and the destructive cycle restarts. Intense loneliness, desperate attempt at connection, social anxiety, forced interaction, disappointment, more isolation, even worse loneliness. This pattern can last years or even decades. People trapped in this cycle frequently develop deep limiting beliefs about themselves and about relationships. Relationships are too difficult. I wasn't born for this. It's better to stay alone. The fundamental error in this entire cycle is the motivation behind the search for connection. When you look for other people primarily to feel better, to fill your emotional void, to solve your loneliness problems, you're putting your own need as the central focus of the interaction. This generates enormous pressure on the social situation. Each conversation becomes a test. Will this person make me feel less alone? Each meeting becomes an audition. Will I manage to impress enough for them to want to continue being my friends? Other people, even subconsciously, perceive this needy energy and feel uncomfortable. Not because they're bad, but because no one likes feeling responsible for another person's emotional happiness, especially someone they just met. But there's a completely different approach, based on a subtle but revolutionary change in mentality. Instead of thinking, I need to connect with these people to feel less alone, you can think, I'm going to connect with these people to help them feel less alone. It's a small difference in words, but gigantic in practical results. When the focus stops being, how can this person help me, and becomes, how can I help this person, something almost magical happens. Loneliness naturally loses strength. Why does this work? First, because it eliminates pressure on the outcome. You're no longer depending on the other person's approval or reciprocity to feel good. Your goal is to give, not receive. If the person doesn't respond the way you expected, it's not a reflection of your personal worth. Second, Because serving others gives a greater purpose that transcends your own suffering. Instead of desperately seeking approval or acceptance, you're offering something genuinely valuable. This completely changes the dynamics of social interaction. Third, because focusing on others takes us out of the obsessive mental cycle of constant self-evaluation. Instead of monitoring every reaction, analyzing every word, worrying about every silence, your mind is occupied trying to understand and help the other person. Our society teaches us from childhood to think mainly about ourselves, especially when it comes to emotional well-being. Take care of yourself first. You can't love others if you don't love yourself. Be your own priority. You're only responsible for your own happiness. These phrases sound empowering and even make sense in some contexts, but can be extremely limiting when it comes to social connection. Excessively self-focused thinking is precisely what creates the invisible barrier that prevents genuine relationships. When you're constantly worried about your own needs, fears, insecurities, and desires, it becomes very difficult to truly open up to another person. It's like trying to listen to music while talking on the phone. Your attention is divided and neither activity happens with quality. Deep relationships are born when two people can, at least temporarily, step out of exclusive focus on themselves and genuinely become interested in the other's experience. This doesn't mean sacrificing or annulling yourself, but rather expanding the circle of concern to include other people. The only lasting solution to the loneliness epidemic is for each person to take responsibility not only for their own well-being, but also for the well-being of the people around them. Not as a heavy moral obligation, but as intelligent recognition that our happiness is intimately connected to our community's happiness. People who live in communities where everyone genuinely cares for one another rarely suffer from chronic loneliness. Not because they're never physically alone, but because they know they're part of a mutual support network. They know that if they need it, someone will be there, and they know that others also count on them. Now comes the most important part of all this content, the invitation to concrete action. Even if you're intensely suffering from loneliness right now, there's something specific and powerful you can do today. Try reaching out to at least 3 people who might be going through a similar situation. They could be old friends you've lost touch with, distant family members you haven't seen in months, co-workers who seem isolated, neighbors who live alone, social media acquaintances who haven't posted much lately. It doesn't matter who they are. What's important is taking the first step. The simple act of sending a caring, genuine message, without ulterior motives, can literally transform someone's day. And I'm not exaggerating to motivate. Millions of people go entire weeks without receiving a personal message from anyone. When they do receive one, it becomes the highlight of their entire week. Your mind will immediately create dozens of excuses and objections. It'll be weird to send a message after so long. The person will think I want something. What if they don't respond? What if they think I'm being inconvenient? I don't know what to say. It'll seem forced. All these fears are understandable, but completely unfounded when you have a genuine intention to care. The reality is that being remembered is one of the most extraordinary sensations that exist. It means someone took time from their busy life to think about you. Think about the last time someone sent you a message out of nowhere, just to see how you were, without wanting anything in return. How did you feel? You probably felt surprised, touched, happy, maybe even a little emotional. That's exactly the feeling you can provide for other people. And it doesn't need to be anything elaborate or poetic. Simple and direct messages work perfectly. Hi, I was thinking about you today. How are you? Or, I saw something that reminded me of you, wanted to know if everything's okay over there. Or, it's been a while since we talked, I missed you. How are things going? Authenticity is much more important than eloquence. A somewhat awkward but sincere message is infinitely worth more than a perfect but calculated text. People feel the difference between genuine interest and social manipulation. Of course, not everyone will respond the way you expect. Some people might be too busy to chat. Others might be going through difficult times and prefer to stay alone temporarily. Some might have changed numbers or no longer use that social network. But this shouldn't discourage you. What's important is planting seeds of connection, knowing that some will germinate immediately, others will take a bit longer, and some might not germinate this time. What matters is the act of planting, not controlling the results. An interesting discovery. Many people who are suffering from loneliness hesitate to reach out to others because they think, everyone else is fine, I'm the only one who's not well. This perception is completely wrong. Studies show that most people feel lonely at least occasionally, and many feel this way frequently. Social media creates an illusion that everyone is happy and connected all the time. But that's just the edited version of real life. Behind the cheerful posts and group photos, many people are facing the same challenges you are. When you send a caring message to someone, especially someone who wasn't expecting it, you might be saving that person's day. You might be interrupting a cycle of negative thoughts. You might be offering exactly the human connection they were needing. Something fundamental to understand. Those who create content like me, who speak to thousands of people, can't maintain close personal relationships with everyone who watches. It would be physically and emotionally impossible. But you, as a community, can and should support each other. The beauty of a healthy community is precisely this. Each person genuinely caring for some other specific people, creating a support network that sustains everyone. You don't need to be friends with everyone, but you can make a significant difference in the lives of some specific people. And here's the most powerful secret of all. When you dedicate yourself to helping someone feel less alone, you automatically feel less alone too. It's not magic or positive thinking. It's basic psychology. Genuine human connection always flows in both directions. When you offer presence, attention, and sincere care to another person, you inevitably receive presence, attention, and care back. By serving, you are served. By caring, you are cared for. Additionally, when you're focused on helping others, your mind exits the obsessive cycle of self-evaluation and self-pity that feeds loneliness. Instead of ruminating about your own problems, you're occupied thinking about how you can contribute positively to someone's life. This shift in focus is therapeutic by itself. It gives purpose, meaning, a sense of usefulness. It makes you feel part of something bigger than your own personal problems. Loneliness really is a collective problem. And that's why it can only be overcome when we all take responsibility for genuinely caring for one another. We can't wait for governments to create public policies to cure loneliness. We can't wait for companies to develop technological products that substitute human connection. The change needs to start with each of us, in our personal relationships, in our local communities. Imagine for a moment what the world would be like if each person seriously committed to genuinely caring for at least 3 other people. Where everyone felt responsible not only for their own happiness, but also for the happiness and well-being of those around them. That world wouldn't just be statistically happier, it would be fundamentally more human. People would feel safer, more connected, more hopeful. Individual problems would be faced collectively. Personal victories would be celebrated in community. Technology could finally fulfill its promise of connecting us instead of isolating us. Differences of opinion could generate enriching debates instead of destructive conflicts. Independence could coexist harmoniously with healthy interdependence. Loneliness might seem like an impossible monster to defeat when faced individually. It feeds on isolation, grows in the darkness of silence, strengthens when no one talks about it. But it has a fatal weak point. It disappears instantly in the presence of genuine love and true connection. And that cure is literally within reach of your hands right now. A message, a phone call, an invitation, a simple gesture of care can be the beginning of transformation not only in another person's life, but in your own life too. The choice is yours. Continue waiting for someone to solve your loneliness, or start solving other people's loneliness and discover that, in the process, you also find the connection you were looking for. If this content touched your heart, and awakened a genuine reflection about your own connections and responsibilities, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep discussions about topics that really matter. And give the video a like to help me reach more people who might need to hear exactly this message today.